Hey everyone. So I've been using the Google Pixel 8a for well over a week now, about a week and a half. I meant to post this video a few days ago, but things have just been a little hectic lately. I just got home, slipped on the shirt. I got some reheated chipotle here that I'm gonna go ahead and crush. I figured now would be a good time to go ahead and talk to you guys about this phone, what it's been like to use it over the past week and a half, things that I've noticed specifically about this phone that I thought would be worth sharing with you guys. And finally, I'm gonna tell you right now, probably a lot of people might disagree with me. I think this is probably the best looking and best feeling phone that you can get for $499 right now in 2024 brand new. Maybe a couple other contenders. Go ahead and drop it down below what you think, but I don't think there's a better looking phone, especially in this bay blue here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start off and I'm gonna tell you why I think that. Now, if you've seen my last couple of videos, then you know how much I like the design of this phone. Not only does it look great, but it feels great to hold. All around, it's very sleek and has a somewhat unique design, at least when you compare it to a lot of the other phones under $500. Even in a more common color like the Obsidian, this phone still looks great and has a more unique design due to the fact that it is a Pixel phone. Now, some of you may mind the fact that this phone has slightly thicker bezels. I, for one, don't mind it too much, especially when it has such a nice display. The 6.1-inch display has this really cool interactive wallpaper option that you can get in the emoji workshop. But first, let me just remind you guys where to find Smooth Display. This is an option that I am really grateful for in the A series, and I believe I've mentioned that before. Going down here into display, putting it on, it will go from 60 Hz to 120 Hz, which is a 30 Hz increase over the 7A. Now, I'm just going to be focusing on the emoji workshop and the wallpaper and style settings on the phone. There is the AI wallpaper, and I will put a link in the description to show you how to use that. But today, I'm just going to focus on making an emoji interactive wallpaper. Now, me personally, I like to have this scale down a little bit smaller. If you go over to patterns, you can increase or decrease the size of the emojis. I think the less is better because then you can see the patterns a little bit more. And also, it just gives you more emojis to interact with when you are dragging your finger around and swiping around on the phone. The emojis also do this cute little flipping thing when you unlock the phone, and then when you go to plug it in, they also turn into little tiny lightning bolts to let you know that it's charging. The Google Pixel 8a has a fairly standard battery, at least compared with the rest of Google's lineup. There are other phones that do have better batteries, but I don't think you're really making that much of a sacrifice in terms of standard battery life. Google does claim that it has over 24 hours of battery life on their website, and even in the fine print, they had said an average of 33 hours during testing, though that is with their own default settings. I'm assuming that is with the 60 hertz display, not 120. Also, a lower brightness. I like to keep mine at maximum brightness. And what I have noticed by running maximum brightness at 120 hertz is an average of a little over 8 hours, sometimes more like 9 or 10, but pretty consistently around 8.5 out of a full day of use. I have been careful not to charge my phone throughout the day to make sure I am getting just 100% at the start of the day and then no more, but it's been pretty decent. Where I am more disappointed in this phone is in the charging speeds. As you can see, 18 watts wired and 7.5 watts wireless is pretty weak. Again, Google has been pretty consistent with the charging, having modest speeds. You can see the other charging speeds up above. Pixel 8 at 27 wired, 18 wireless, and then the Pro at 30 watts wired, 23 wireless. A lot of phones are really good at charging faster. A lot of Motorola's over 60 watts, same with OnePlus and some of the other manufacturers. I don't mind it as much. I don't need a phone that can charge from 0 to 100 in an hour. I'm pretty good about keeping my phone charged and just keeping an eye on my things. Though, if you are someone who wants faster charging speeds, this phone may not be the one for you, though it may also be just an issue with Pixel as a whole. On the note of wireless charging speeds, 7.5 seems pretty ridiculous for the Pixel 8a, though it wasn't until I started making this video and looking at the numbers that I realized that the Pixel Fold also only had 7.5 watts wireless charging. I've had that phone for about almost 8 months now, and not once have I noticed the wireless charging speed being slow. I guess that just goes to show how little I actually use my wireless charger. I do have one by my bedside, but I don't always use it just because sometimes my cat does nudge my phone or knock it off and then it stops charging. So yes, it is a sacrifice in terms of the battery life on the Pixel 8a, especially over the Pixel 8, but it may not be a sacrifice that you really feel. It's hard not to compare this phone to the Google Pixel 8 considering they're the same size, practically identical, and have a very close price tag. When you look at the build quality of this device, that's where you can see some of the corners that Google had to cut in order to make it $200 cheaper than the Google Pixel 8. One of the first things you'll notice when you pick the phone up is that Google gave it a plastic back instead of a glass back. Now, while many would think that a plastic back is going to feel less premium on a device, which it kind of does, it doesn't look less premium. That's because even though this has a plastic back instead of glass on the 8, Google gave it a matte finish over the glossy finish that's on the Pixel 8. So, in my opinion, and from what I see online, a lot of people agree, this is the better looking phone. At least the color is. The camera bump on the Pixel 8 is slightly larger. In fact, I'll go ahead and put an image of one on screen. But other than that, they are very similar phones in terms of how they look. Now, when you flip it over and go to the rest of the glass, that's where you get the next difference, which is Gorilla Glass 3 on this phone compared to Gorilla Glass Victus on the Google Pixel 8. Now, I can't tell you exactly the difference in strength between these two glasses. I've seen different estimates and statistics online, but what I will say is that Gorilla Glass 3 is an older screen technology. This is from 2013, and it was the same glass that was used on the Galaxy S5, whereas Gorilla Glass Victus was released in 2020. It is about 7 years newer, which, when you look at phones and the type of progress they can make in 7 years, could be significant. Though I'm willing to bet both phones would break pretty easily under some, you know, medium height drops. I'm guessing around, 5 feet without a case. Either one of them could get a cracked screen very easily. The Pixel also has a weaker water resistance with IP67 instead of IP68. Both phones can be in the water for 30 minutes, but the Pixel 8 can be in deeper water, 1.5 meters instead of 8A at 1 meter. I think this is fairly close though, and for most circumstances, you're going to be fine, especially if the phone just gets wet, you spill some water on it, drop it in a pool. As long as you get it out and get it dry fast, I think both phones are going to have similar luck. It's also important to mention that when it comes to water resistance, this is a feature that isn't always permanent on devices. These phones are fragile and they're not going to last forever. So, after a couple of years, if it's been dropped and kicked around a few times, either one of these phones could become more susceptible to water damage. Both of these phones have 7 years of operating system updates and security updates, which I think is really good, probably more than you're going to need, and it's probably easy for them to make that promise, but it is nice to see that they are making it. Now, this phone does have the same Tensor G3 chip that's in the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 8 Pro, though according to some benchmarks, it does look like it is a slower version of that chip because this phone doesn't perform as well as those other phones. With that being said, this phone has been able to handle all of my gaming needs, though I am more of a casual gamer when it comes to mobile gaming. I want to go ahead and play a little Call of Duty just to show you guys how this phone does when it's a little more intense of a game, a little more hardcore. It does perform well, but not as well as some of the other devices. Now, this is a training match, so I'm not playing against other people, though I am playing with another person, so this would be a good test of the online play. But if you are playing with a lot of people and they have a bad connection, they could mess up your own connection, though I have not had any issues while playing. Last thing I want to mention is overheating. I haven't had any issues with real overheating with this phone, though I do know it gets a little bit warm after a nice gaming session. After about an hour or so of doing this, you will notice the phone getting warmer, though I've never had any issues with it actually overheating, just getting a little warm in the hands.
Enemy UAV active. Moving in. Proper job.
Finally, the price. This phone starts out at $499, comes in Bay, Aloe, Obsidian, and Porcelain with 128 gigabytes of internal storage, or for $599, you can buy an Obsidian model with 256 gigabytes of storage. The real question though is, should you buy this phone? And yeah, I think that you should buy this phone. I think this phone is a tremendous value for the price, and I think for most people, it's going to serve all their needs. A couple needs that it doesn't really do as well. It is a great camera phone and it takes great photos, but if you need to take photos from a distance away and you really need that zoom, the telephoto lens on this camera is non-existent. There's no telephoto. So that could be a good reason why you might not want to buy this phone. Also, if you are really into heavy gaming and you're even considering buying a gaming phone, well, this phone is going to be a good gamer, but after a while it is going to be a little warm and it's not going to perform as well as some of the other phones, especially phones that have a Snapdragon chip in it. But I will give you three solid reasons why you should not buy this phone. Because in most circumstances, I think it's a great value, but here are three great reasons not to buy the Pixel 8a. One, you have a phone that is not that old, maybe only a year old, and you don't really need to switch. You're just kind of looking at phones and thinking about it. That's a good reason not to buy this phone because it's a really solid and good phone, but there are really only a few things it can do that other phones can't do. It doesn't really have anything that really wows you or makes you have to get a Pixel 8a. Reason number two, you need a bigger screen size. Whether it's for gaming or whatever, 6.1 inches is not enough for you and you want a phone with more real estate. It's a good reason not to get this one. Reason number three, you should not get this phone if you are not going to appreciate the savings or if money is not a factor for you at all. If you're someone you can just go into a store, get whatever you want, whatever accessories, slap it on there, you don't have to think twice about money, then yeah, you probably shouldn't get this phone because you'll get it and you'll be like, I don't get it. I don't understand what's so great. And that's because this phone is just really good at doing a lot of things that all those other more expensive phones can do for about half the price. I mean, that's really the best part about this phone is how cheap it is. So if you're someone and money's not an object for you at all, then yeah, I imagine you wouldn't appreciate this phone as much. Not to say that you can't appreciate things that aren't as expensive. I just mean that that is the biggest benefit of this phone is saving that money. But let me know what you guys think. I do know this phone doesn't cost $499 everywhere. I had a YouTuber here on my comment section. He was talking to me, telling me that over in India, this phone was actually a little more expensive, which was surprising for me to hear. And I just kind of got to thinking, if this phone was more expensive, if it wasn't $499, I probably wouldn't be recommending it. It's good, but knowing that it does have some limitations and that it doesn't perform as well as the other phones that have the same chip, it does kind of make you think, this is the cheaper phone. This is the more budget phone. It has to be cheap and it has to work with your budget because that's the whole point. So, if you're at a place where buying this phone is only possible at a markup, then I don't recommend it at all. But for $499, I think it's a great price. But let me know what you guys think down below. Please, comment down below. Let me know if you have any questions about the device, anything that you think I left out, or whatever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this. I look forward to talking to you again and interacting with you down below. And yeah, like and subscribe if you want to see more. Y'all have a good night.